Hello, sci-fi author Chase Randolph here with another book review for you. Today, I'm talking about another of my favorite authors and one of the first sci-fi books that I read. Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. Because of the cerebral feel this book gives me, I'm playing Cold Waters here in the background. Cold Waters is one of my favorite games and I don't play it enough, but it requires a certain mood for me to get into it. In Cold Waters, you captain a submarine through the various Cold War gone hot scenarios set in the 1960s, 80s, or 1960s and 80s against the Soviets, or the 2000s against the Chinese. The methodical, strategic thinking of Ender's Game and its big brain ideas are a perfect example of this and the way you have to think and operate in this game. And rereading the book has really gotten me in the mood to get back to this game. I'm just going to play a single mission here, though. I don't have the time to devote to a full campaign for it, as the hunting and logistics and such of the campaign beyond that, of just the tactical submarine combat, can get pretty involved while hunting the Red October. And needless to say, this book, above all else, makes me feel smart and instills critical thinking and reserved seriousness. Or at least that's what it does for me, among other things.
Sonar new contact bearing 146 designated Sierra 3.
Ender's Game was one of the first overtly science fiction books that I read.
Bearing 079 designated Sierra
and
4.
That was way back roughly around the same time I was discovering Battletech. I was in the 6th or 7th grade, something like that. I had not read it since, and I'll tell you what I remembered about it, and then I'll tell you what I think about it now, having reread it so many years later. It is one of 2 or 3 major influences that coincided to spark my deep love for science fiction. When I read this book in grade school, I read it in a matter of a couple days. I found it a riveting story, perhaps because I was only 3 or 4 years older than Andrew Wiggin, perhaps because I too was a bullied little kid and wanted to stand up for myself, because I was convinced I was smarter than the other kids who bullied me, and that my genius was being squandered. Perhaps it was because the book kind of pits all the children of the world against all the adults of the world, and I wanted to rebel against those adults, as most adolescents do. Perhaps I was heartened by the harrowing tale of this boy and his indomitable intellect concerning all obstacles, and all the heartless and brutal adults, and the obstacles that they set before him. Or because his unknowingly having saved the human race, and he was desired and worshipped by all as a hero, without him even, knowing what he was doing,
Sonar Sierra 3 is classified as
or that he was a hero or going to become a hero. Many of the faceless, only partially defined, but ever-present, looming, inescapable threat of the bad guys, the buggers. Just as a side note, I wonder why so many writers and so many stories have insects like aliens as the bad guys, as the evil. And by aliens, I mean like with Ripley and the Xenomorphs, or, if you have Ender's Game, or Starship Troopers and the Buggers. And there's just so many things with insectoid aliens. Is it just because most people are afraid of creepy crawlies at some instinctual primal level? And that makes it easy for all of us to fear and hate them without needing too much more explanation? Anyway, maybe it was those things, maybe not. It was a long time ago, and I don't remember for sure, but I'm sure of all of the things that helped endear the book and its characters to me. And I can tell you for sure that part of why it was good and stuck so firmly in my mind and made a covert to science fiction out of me, turned me into a sci-fi fanatic that I have, the sci-fi fanatic that I have become, was the science behind the science fiction in Ender's Game. How the space station spins to generate artificial gravity. How the ships actually don't break light speed. The use of quantum entanglement to create the Ansible. The colonization of other places, other planets. The occupation and recycling of colonies after the buggers have been defeated, and nothing going to waste. And another important part of, to me, was that humanity wasn't top dog. We, as a species, were on the back foot the entire time, and defeated our enemy through multiple layers of underhanded tactics and, like nesting dolls. The realization that we weren't the ultimate power, that we weren't invincible, and weren't an everlasting species,
is classified as
was really a reckoning for me, and it made me think and feel about the future and our place in the galaxy. And another big thing was that the science and the technology was real. This was my first look not just into serious science fiction, but what set me on my path to my love and my demand for hard science fiction. Because of its disregards of the laws of nature and physics, if it's not science, it's magic. And if it's not science fiction, that's fantasy. Don't get me wrong, I'm not throwing shade. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm not even saying I don't like it. I just mean that when I look for one, I don't want it to be muddied with the other. But this book is where that love for hard sci-fi started. Now, I'll tell you what I think today, rereading this book. I finished it a while ago, as of the recording of this video, maybe 4 or 5 days a week, and I wrote a 3,600-word rant about something else. Nothing to do with the book, but I was so energized and motivated. And now that I've slept on the book and the ideas, I can tell you, in brief, what it means to me and what I think of it now. And I say in brief because it touches the tip of the iceberg on several ethical and moral dilemmas, and to go down those rabbit holes, to discuss them, could take hours. Time neither of us have to squander on YouTube. Let me start with, I still love it. It's just as good and powerful as I remember it being. And now that I'm an adult, it is not... Now that I'm an adult, it is still not difficult to identify and connect with Ender, even though he is a 6-year-old boy in the beginning of the book, and I'm tickling 30. It is well written from a technical standpoint, too, but that kind of good writing to help an adult, bearded, intellectual man identify, connect, and understand, put himself in the shoes of a 6-year-old boy. Now that's good writing. And then there's also the question of population control, the eugenics, the manipulation, and the manipulation of children, the government-sanctioned confiscation of those children, the ethical or not ethical treatment of those kids, and probably the genetic manipulation, the waging of war, not just upon ourselves, but on another species, across the star, across generations, to another place, and not just beating them, but destroying them, like genocide, not just on one planet, but on all of them. Wiping them from the face of the galaxy, without ever speaking to them, with no warning, no negotiations or quarter, making a species, a thinking, sentient species, not exist anymore. And that's not just the only part, but there's personal relationships between all the kids, not just Ender and the other kids at the school, but the siblings still down on Earth, and the manipulation and the planning and the psychological chess playing with each other, and staying 3 or 4 moves ahead of the other players, and false moves and feints and distractions, because they know you know, and you know that they know you know, and knowing and not knowing, and so on, and the level of intellect and foresight and manipulation between all of the different kids is staggering, and in some ways ascends human into the superhuman. It's fantastic, and I love it. I don't want to get too specific, as there's too much to cover, and I'll let you read it instead. And I'll let the book tell you. Go read it for yourself. I just wanted to tell you that the iceberg is there, and let you find it, let you think about it all on your own. I still love this book, even though the 2 times I've read it were close to 2 decades apart, and I am in extremely different places mentally because of my education and maturity and serious contemplation. It's still a fantastic book, and I tell you to read it, just like I tell you to read my book, The Descendant, which is available on Amazon. The link will be down in the description. Ender's Game is the opening act to a long series by Orson Scott Card. of which I've read most, if not all of the books, and some of, his other ones. And they have perspectives from other characters, like Poor Little Bean. And I tell you, those books are all fantastic too, and if you read one, you should read them all. Some are more than just for the story, the lore, and the less political and ethical intrigue that the rest of the books invoke. But they don't stop making the readers form and ask questions. They are all fantastic books with deep themes and ideas and questions that require contemplation in order to grok properly, in the fullness that they deserve. They might make you a better person. They certainly made me consider my values and motivations and intentions, and take a harder look at the values and intentions and alternate meanings of other people, of society, of governments, of our species as a whole. So, go read Ender's Game, and maybe the whole series. Challenge yourself, expand your horizons.
Shoot tube 2. Con sonar.
I've read other
Transmit
books by
from
Orson
Sierra
Scott Card,
1.
not just that series with Andrew Wiggin. And I haven't found anything bad with his name on the cover. So, take my word for it, for what value that's worth, and read his books. And since this is the reason for my existence on YouTube, I'm going to do my shameless plug. Read my books too. See someone else's challenges, and be glad they're not yours. Anyway, thank you for your time. Please give us a like. It really helps the YouTube algorithm. Especially now that YouTube has changed the algorithm and removed the dislike button, and so on. And each and every like and comment is becoming exponentially more important, especially for small, upstart channels such as mine. And if you've read Ender's Game or anything else by Orson Scott Card, please, leave a comment. Tell me what you think. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if I'm just a rambling, blithering idiot, or if you agree or disagree, or you took something very different away from it, or if the ethical and moral issues in it didn't make you think about ethical and moral issues, and instead it's just a story about a 6-year-old boy. Who knows? Every person that reads that book, or my book, or every person that reads any book will get things of different value, of different ideas out of it than someone else who reads the same book. So, I love this book. Go read Ender's Game. Go read anything by Orson Scott Card. And I love my book. Go read The Descendant. Go read anything with my name on it. Not that there is as much, but I haven't had as much time to get it out into the world. And there's more coming. My second book, we still don't have a date set, but the second book is in work and should be soon, around New Year's, sometime in January. Before February, I hope.
Fire control, weapon acquired.
I'm just waiting on word from the editor. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe if you magically found this video some other way, and I'll see you in the next one. I appreciate your time.
Fire control, weapon acquired.